Science has really affirmed my faith because as I've looked into things, I've been absolutely blown away by the complexity of living things. Even something as simple as a pollen grain landing on a plant in order to fertilise it has so many proteins interacting and cross-talking just to enable it to grow. As I've looked more into these things and seen the intricacies and just the fine-tuning of these systems, it's really affirmed my faith and convinced me even more that there's a God behind all of this. Similarly, now I'm working on the human genome, I'm absolutely fascinated by the fact that 3 billion letters of DNA make up all the building blocks of human life. For plants, as for humans, inbreeding can be harmful, and so some plants have developed a very complex system to prevent inbreeding. So for example, with the poppy plant, if pollen lands on the stigma of a genetically identical plant, then a very complex series of events is triggered, which ultimately leads to the pollen tube self-destructing. The aim of my PhD was to investigate one of the components of this mechanism and to try and help fill in one of the missing pieces of the puzzle. As a teenager, I was a big fan of science, but I didn't really give Christianity much thought at all. To be honest, I'd had some interaction with Christians as a younger teenager and come to the conclusion that Christians were quite weird, so I didn't really want anything to do with them. But that changed when I was 17. I read the Bible for the first time and went along to a Christianity Explored course. And it was there for the first time in my life that I heard it explained that God had created the world and everything in it, and that included me as well. And I realised that if that was true, that it meant that I'd been ignoring him for my whole life, and yet God had provided a way for me to know him and to be in a relationship with him. I've now been a Christian for over 10 years, and the more I've read the Bible, the more convinced I am that it makes complete sense of the world that we see around us. Being a Christian, my science helps to explain the complexity of what we see in the world around us, and the Bible gives the answer to why in our lives, with the great news that God is in complete control of everything and has a real purpose for our lives.